Here is a Sumerian tablet that actually shows the tree of life, flanked by divine beings. You can see here the Anunnaki on each side.
Something inside the Sumerian tablets has just been decoded using advanced AI, and what it reveals is far more unsettling than anyone expected. For years, these ancient clay tablets were believed to be simple records: trade logs, city laws, myths of long-forgotten kings. But this new analysis suggests something very different: that these texts were never just history. They were documentation, not of daily life, but of something far bigger and far darker. Because hidden within them are recurring patterns pointing to the same disturbing questions. Why were humans created? Who created them? And more importantly, why do these texts repeatedly point to a warning about what's going to happen to our world? To understand all the disturbing details the AI has revealed about the tablets, we have to go back to the beginning, the Sumerian mystery. It all began with a discovery in the ancient lands of Mesopotamia. In the 19th century, archaeologists excavating the ruins in the cities of Ur, Nippur, and Eridu uncovered thousands of clay tablets. At first, they looked like simple pieces of dried mud, some no larger than a human hand. But then, something strange emerged. By the late 1800s, researchers began to notice patterns carved into their surfaces, tiny, wedge-shaped marks repeated again and again, as if they carried meaning. Those marks would come to be known as cuneiform. And that's when everything changed, because that meant by around 3200 BC, this ancient civilization had already developed a functional and complex system of writing. And for decades, scholars tried to decode what the writing actually meant. They tried, again and again, but they couldn't solve it. There was a huge problem with the tablets. Many had been shattered, worn down, or buried incomplete. Entire sections were missing. Lines ended mid-thought. Stories cut off before they could explain themselves. For decades, experts worked with these broken fragments. They tried to read the tablets by comparing them to other tablets found across different regions. And finally, at the start of the 1900s, they were able to decode some of them. And what they uncovered was remarkable. Records of trade, inventories of grain and livestock, legal systems like the laws of Hammurabi, and stories, ancient narratives, the AI breakthrough. In 2025, researchers from Cornell University and Tel Aviv University developed a system called ProtoSnap, a model designed not to translate language directly, but to understand the symbols themselves, because that had always been the real problem. Cuneiform isn't consistent. It contains over 1,000 unique signs, and the shape of each sign can change depending on the time period, region, and even the individual scribe. And that made accurate reading almost impossible. So instead of guessing meaning, the AI started with shape. It analyzed 2D scans of thousands of tablets, images collected from museums, archives, and excavation records across the world. Tablets from Babylon. Using a diffusion model, the same kind of AI used in advanced image generation, it measured how each wedge mark aligned with a perfect prototype of a sign. Then it adjusted that prototype until it snapped exactly into place. And once the symbols were aligned, fragments began to connect. Pieces that once meant nothing on their own started to align. Patterns began to appear. And slowly, the text started making sense. And that's when researchers noticed something unexpected. The translations didn't read like simple stories. They didn't behave like mythology, because what these ancient texts were describing, it was an account of the creation of the first humans. The first humans. Here's where the translations become even more unsettling. Because the tablets didn't describe a single creation of humanity, they described many. And the deeper the AI analyzed the text, the clearer that difference became. According to multiple Sumerian sources, humans were not formed naturally. They were created by beings the Sumerians called the Anunnaki, powerful figures said to have come from the heavens. At first, this sounded like mythology, but again and again, the tablets describe a process involving clay, blood, and what they called divine essence. The gods shaped forms in their own likeness, then gave them purpose. One recurring account even describes the creation of a figure named Adamu, formed from clay and infused with this essence. A name that sounds familiar. And across different tablets, new phrases began to stand out, especially after AI reconstruction. But not all humans were the same. Different words appeared across the tablets. Some were called Lulu, a general term for man. Others were called Sag-Gig, often translated as the black-headed people. At first, these seemed like simple variations. But when the AI compared them across multiple texts, a pattern emerged. Division among humans. This is where the system begins to reveal its true shape. Because once these different versions of humans existed, they weren't treated equally. Some humans were created for labor, to carry out work the gods no longer wished to do. Digging canals, tending land, building structures. Others were created for a different purpose entirely. To give them awareness, speech, and the ability to follow complex instructions, things that normal humans could not. These were the ones who observed, calculated, recorded, the thinkers. And above them, another group appeared, described in fragments as overseers, intermediaries, those who could interpret the will of the gods and pass it down. The leaders. But what truly separates these groups isn't just what they did, it's what they were allowed to know, because knowledge was not shared equally among these humans. Some humans were taught writing, given access to symbols, numbers, the movements of the stars, while most humans had no access to language or records and no way to question or understand. In some passages, entire groups are described without names, only with their functions, as if identity itself had been removed. War among gods. The tablets don't describe the gods as united. They describe disagreement among the gods. On one side was Enki, the god of wisdom, the one who had taken part in shaping humanity, who gave them knowledge, speech, and the ability to survive on their own. In several passages, he is described as a protector, a creator who didn't just build humans to serve, but allowed them to grow. But not all gods agreed with that. On the other side was Enlil, the god of authority, the enforcer of order. And to him, humans were never meant to evolve. The tablets describe his response as immediate. Humans were noisy, unpredictable, breaking the limits they had been given. So he wanted to put limits on humans. And this is where the divide between the gods became impossible to ignore. Because while Enki continued to guide certain humans, teaching them in secret, giving them knowledge of writing, agriculture, even the stars. The final warning. This is where the tablets take an even stranger turn, because they don't just describe the past. They describe what comes next. Across multiple fragments, the Sumerians are shown watching the sky. For centuries, priests and scribes recorded the movement of stars, planets, and eclipses, tracking patterns with a precision that still confuses researchers today. They weren't just observing, they were waiting. Again and again, one idea appears across the texts. A cycle, a return. Something that leaves and then comes back. something that has already happened more than once, and something that will happen again. Which is why the Sumerians didn't just record these events. They embedded them, scattered across tablets, hidden in fragments, preserved across centuries, as if they knew the full message wouldn't be understood all at once, but only when everything was finally brought together. In the end, these tablets didn't describe the history of lost civilizations, but a warning that everything we have built, knowledge, cities, systems, can be erased if we fail to recognize the pattern before it repeats. So what do you think about this? Are these tablets simply ancient stories, misunderstood over time? Or could they be fragments of something real, something we're only now beginning to understand? Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next one.